Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft blog live stream. Staton Robbie Williams with you here today to discuss day 3 of the NFL Combine and a whole bunch of other topics. That time of year where things are going on, and we'll touch on a very interesting report from Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano as well from ESPN. They've been talking about the Seahawks today and their potential free agent targets. There's a bit more on Russell Wilson and Matt Corral that we're going to get into. But we're going to start off by talking about the Combine. Robbie Williams has been there every single day in Lucas Oil Field watching the workouts. I've been watching at home. If you've missed all of the analysis over the last few days, check out SeahawksDraftBlog.com. There's loads of information on there. Especially if you're a Seahawks fan, you will kind of find the guys that they are more likely to go for, what the interesting things that are relative to the Seahawks. But if you're not a Seahawks fan, you'll find a lot of details on there as well. Let's get into this then, Robbie. We'll start with the defensive tackles, because I've got to say, I thought the edge rushers, and we'll talk about them in a bit, were underwhelming. I think there was a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement. They've been hyped up, rightly so, going into the Combine, and they didn't really deliver for me, and we'll talk about why. But it was the complete opposite with the defensive tackles. We saw a superhero performance from Jordan Davis. He should be in the next Marvel film. It's just an incredible, one of the greatest athletic displays we will ever see, regardless of the sport, regardless of the setting. What Jordan Davis did is frankly remarkable. And if you told me right now that the Jaguars took him with the number 1 overall pick, I wouldn't say it was a bad move. And it's not going to happen. They're probably going to go in a different direction. But to have a 340-pound player run a faster 40 time than Nick Bosa at 266 pounds, you are talking, and then he's got the most explosive broad jump that's ever happened by an offensive or defensive lineman. He's got a brilliant vertical jump. I think it was 32 inches. And he's running in the 4.7s, Robbie. This is absolutely incredible. And he can be, I went into this thinking, well, he's good, but he's maybe not Vita Vea. Now I'm thinking he might be even better, because I expected a really fast time. I thought he'd run in the 4.8s, 4.9s. 4.7s? This is ridiculous, Robbie. What did it look like from your perspective?
Impressive. Absolutely impressive. The first thing I did as I got on your blog and I posted, like, whoa, Jordan Davis. That was incredible. I mean, watching him live, he absolute specimen of a human. He just ran so fast. And then, I mean, there's a difference between the 40s watching them run and the effort put in. And he made it look like it was effortless, going so fast. And listen, I'm just going to say this right now. I know we're just talking about defense. If you're from Georgia right now, I'm talking all of Georgia. Yeah, every one of them came to play yesterday. I mean, absolutely impressive. You go down the line, Channing Tindall, he was impressive as the linebacker position. N'Kobe Dean, he was impressive. Trayvon Walker, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, all these guys from Georgia were just, they just breed them differently there. That was impressive. Everything they did was awesome. And yeah, watching him, everything, I was bummed actually that he didn't run a second 40, because I have my phone out. I was ready to record it on the screen because he was cooking, and I would have loved to see him do it again. But I honestly, they were saying, like, why would he? I mean, it absolutely doesn't need to. Brilliant.
Well, I mean, just to reiterate this again, I think it's worth saying twice. Jordan Davis is 6'6" and 341 pounds. Nick Bosa, 266 pounds. And Jordan Davis ran a quicker 40. He ran a 4.78, and Nick Bosa ran a 4.79. Now, people are not going to project him first overall, and I get why, because he's a big defensive tackle. He's not going to be on the field, Robbie, on third down, being Aaron Donald. He just isn't. He may be a 2-down player. You might have to spell him a little bit, but what he brings is incredible, and he can be a foundational piece. And he is the kind of freakish athlete who warrants going very, very early.
Top 10 easy, yeah.
I think he has to be top 10. Dontari Poe was 11th overall, and he didn't get close to what Jordan Davis did. And we've seen other players over the years go in the top 15, these big athletic nose tackles. Danny Sheldon was one who went very, very early. Vita Vea's gone very, very early. Dontari Poe's gone very, very early. This guy is on a different level completely. He has to go in the top 10. And again, I'll say it once more. He can't go too high for me. Take him, invest in that athleticism. He seems like a guy who is very down to earth. I like his personality. His interviews are good. He's grounded. I like everything about him. I like the fact that he sat there with Devontae Wyatt waiting for those two linebackers, Quay Walker and Channing Tindall, to finish their workouts as well, just so he could go over there and have a little celebratory moment. The guy is outstanding, and he can't go too high in this draft for me.
Yeah, well, I think there's going to be there may be 5 to 6 Georgia players that go in the top 20. It's crazy. They just put on a show yesterday. It was impressive. Fun to see live too, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I bet it was. And then you just sort of run through the rest of them. I mean, we can almost forget about some of the other defensive tackles because of Davis's performance. Devontae Wyatt ran a 4.77 officially at 304 pounds. At 304 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, that is remarkable. And then when you see him doing the drills, his footwork, his foot speed, the way that he just shifted around the bags, just incredible. His work in space, Robbie. I mean, like, this is a guy. We all know that the Seahawks like to drop a defensive lineman into coverage. With Devontae Wyatt, you could probably actually justify it with the way that he was moving out there. He'd actually do you a job.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just sensational. So I think that he was remarkable too. And then you just word down Travis Jones.
Oh, Travis Jones had a great day yesterday.
325 pounds, ran a 4.92.
Yeah.
You know, we should be talking about him, but we're not, because there's two other guys who ran even better.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, because I mean, he deserves some praise, because he looked excellent yesterday, especially in the shifts. I think he got out of his breaks quickly and such, and he broke things down really well. I like the bags as they were doing too, and he was quick around the edges. Impressive guy as well. He should be getting a lot more credit, but I mean, it's hard when those Georgia guys just stole the show.
Well, here's the other thing about Travis Jones. So 6'4", 325, running the 4.92, which is great. He ran a 4.58 short shuttle, Robbie. A 4.58 short shuttle at 325 pounds and a 7.333 cone. Now, that short shuttle, I'm telling you, is the one is perhaps even more important for him than that 40 time. And here's what teams are going to look at when they see him. He's explosive as well. His broad jump was a 9.2. So here's what teams are going to look at with Travis Jones. They're going to say, okay, his tape wasn't amazing, but when we saw him at the Senior Bowl, he was driving blockers backwards with violence time and time again. He is explosive and powerful. He can anchor. He can move the pocket. He can get into the quarterback's eye line and into his face by just driving people backwards. So we've got that. But now we also know he's an elite athlete in terms of speed and agility. He is the complete package. If you were hoping that Travis Jones was going to be there at 41, forget about it. Forget about it. For me, top 20 talent in this draft, without a shadow of a doubt. Whether he goes that high, who knows? If somebody took him in the top 20, I'd congratulate them for that, Robbie. I think it would be a fantastic pick. And if he does somehow last to 41, he's one of the few players in this draft the Seahawks should waste. They don't have to wait 10 minutes to make their pick. They should be getting that in straight away. He is an unbelievable talent, a very, very rare talent. And then there's other players too. Perrion Winfrey got injured running his 40, Robbie, but even though he got hurt running the 40, he still ran a 4.89.
Yeah,
and
he came out. I saw that he came up limping on the 40, and I think I posted it right away in the blog. I was like, "Oh, he came up limping," because it was one of the guys that I wanted to see. They also showed a replay of it. I don't know if you saw that, but he lost his necklace as he was running. I mean, just grunting, and then the whole thing just flew off.
The necklace, the bit at the bottom came off. I'm not a necklace connoisseur. The bit at the bottom came off, and then the chain was like hanging on for a bit, and then that shot off.
Yeah. But the fact that he ran that fast and still came up limping, I mean, man, if he didn't get hurt, I think he would have ran even a little bit faster. So yeah, I mean, unfortunate, but I think he did some of the other drills, but
he didn't. I don't think he did any of the drills. I think after that he shut it down. But
maybe he didn't. You're right.
I didn't see him out on the field, but you were there. Maybe you saw him do a little bit, but I didn't see anything on the TV broadcast in terms of drills. But he's 290 pounds. And he ran a 4.89 at 290 pounds with an injury. And he had and before the injury, he ran a 1.68 split. Now, I would usually say anything in the 1.6s for an inside out rusher is fantastic. To run that at 290 pounds and be a 3 technique is insane. So Perrion Winfrey, his tape is massively inconsistent, Robbie. it's well, a lot of people have said this now, and it's true. The scheme does not suit him in Oklahoma. It's a lot of slanting. You're attacking from different angles. He would often look confused, not really knowing what to do. I think that his footwork's a bit shaky as well in terms of there's a lot of wasted motion when he makes a rush. I think that if you were to put him in a scheme where you just attack your gaps and be disruptive, I think he can be fantastic. And he showed that at the Senior Bowl because he was very, very productive in the 1v1s and in the scrimmages there. And he can show in a different scheme that he could be very, very good. I think at 290 running a 168 split, Robbie, he's going to go in the first round. Again, I don't see him going at 41 or lasting to 41, even with the inconsistent play. He would have had to have tested worse than that to have a shot. I mean, the NFL is insane if it allows a 290-pound three technique running a 4.89 and a 168 split to last around 2. Simple as that. So I don't think he or Jones or Wyatt are going to be there at 41. And I'm afraid if they are, happy days. They've got a great option there, Robbie, and they should seriously consider that. But I just don't see any of those guys lasting. So who could be there? Matthew Butler from Tennessee ran a 5.00 at 297. Jumped to 32-inch vertical and a 9-foot broad. Agility testing was rubbish, but he's powerful. He's explosive. He's shown some quickness with that 5.00, and it shows up on tape. So if you're looking at a guy who might be there in round 3 and 4, who can play defensive tackle for you, Matthew Butler is a player who could potentially do that. DeMarvin Leal ran a 5.00. Not a great time for an inside-out rusher who might need to convert to full-time 3 technique. But at 283 pounds, he ran a 4.49 short shuttle. The Seahawks like short shuttles in that range. They like impressive short shuttles. They have a history of taking guys with that kind of size who run that kind of short shuttle. So DeMarvin Leal, inconsistent tape, massive upside in terms of his agility, Robbie. He probably will be there at 41. So if they want that type of player, if they want to take a punt, then he is an option for that as well.
Yeah, when we start talking about the 41th pick, I mean, if one of these guys like Winfrey or Jones, they fall to 41, I think I'm going to the podium for that. But again, start looking at those guards and like Abraham Lucas, if he drops, I'd rather go that route instead. But they're going to have some options at 41, I think, because people are going to overdraft on some of these quarterbacks. People are going to get take a lot earlier than they probably should. There's going to be some good talent there at 41. So I think we're going to have a choice of a couple players. I remember last year when we were like, "Whoa, why is he still on the board? Why is he still on the board?" And then why then we're confused. Why did they take him? So they're going to have some talent there at 41, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think I like what you said about Matthew Butler. The only problem I had with him is didn't he have he's pretty short arms, right?
No,
I mean, that's not. Maybe I'm thinking of who am I thinking of that has short arms?
Matthew Butler has, I can tell you, I've got it here, 33.5-inch arms.
Okay.
So,
yeah, then I'm
okay.
thinking of someone else. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. At 41, I think there could be other options. Man, it sure makes you wish we had that first round pick, right?
Do you know what? I was watching Jordan Davis thinking. I was watching Jordan. 10, if he lasts to 10, there's going to be tears in the Staton household at the end of April. I can tell you that now. You're absolutely right, Robbie. We shouldn't rule anything out because I'm saying all this stuff now that this guy's not going to be here, that guy's going to be here. I guarantee that the mock drafts will start coming out next week, and some of them will be second round mock drafts as well, and those guys will be on the board. So some people won't project them that. I just happen to think that if you are 304 pounds running a 4.77, you ain't getting out of the first round.
Yeah.
And I happen to think if you are 290 pounds, you're running a 4.89 and 168 split, you ain't getting out of the first round. And if you are 325 pounds, you're running a 4.92, you're probably going to go in the top 20 because that is where Dontari Poe went for similar testing numbers. And it's not just the 40, it is the short shuttle, it is the explosive power, it is the Senior Bowl. So how the heck does Travis Jones, he's done everything. Tick, tick, tick throughout the whole offseason in terms of building his stock up. So how does he last? It's not even if the Seattle had the 33rd pick, you'd kind of think, well, okay. If he just fell out of round 1, they can get him at the top of round 2. you're talking 10 picks into the second round here. So even like if he gets out of the first round, is he going to get past 10 picks all the way to you? I suppose the other thing we should maybe think about, Robbie, is what if Travis Jones is there at 28? Or Perion Winfrey? Or even Devontae Wyatt? Do you consider trading up? Is there a deal to be done? You have 2 fourths. If there is a team that is very, very determined to move down, and you have 2 fourth rounders, and they are both high in the 4th round, and they think we love the depth of this draft, we'd rather take a guy at 41 and have an extra 4th round pick. Do you surrender one of those 4th round picks to go and get a Jones, a Winfrey, a Wyatt? You have to balance off, the idea that you will be passing up on a good player in the 4th round because there are some good players there. Someone has asked who has the 28th pick right now. It's Green Bay, who are used to trading down and have done deals with Seattle in the past. Do you want to give up that New York Jets top of the 4th round pick to go and get one of these guys if they're still there in that 28 range? It's an interesting topic. I don't know how I would answer that, Robbie, because if you could tell me right now that the Seahawks could start next season with someone like Devontae Wyatt breaking through the interior and causing havoc, or Perion Winfrey, I'm down with that. And if you're telling me they could get a really dynamic nose tackle who could have some pass rush ability and pocket collapsing ability in Travis Jones, I'd be down with that, especially if they go into free agency and get a Chandler Jones type, because then I think you're talking about fixing the trenches. That is a fixing of the trenches there. And for the price of a 4th round pick, I would consider it, but who knows? Maybe the teams at the bottom of round 1 would ask for the 3rd, and then maybe you think that's a bit rich. So
I think that's too rich, and I think just that there's a lot of talent to be had in that 4th round. So having 2 high picks in that round is tough. But yeah, I mean, you get somebody like for me, Travis Jones would be, I think, almost a no-brainer. I think you do it because that guy collapses the pocket. I mean, we see 1v1, he was destroying people. Absolutely destroying. So, I mean, it's going to help everyone around him because they're going to have to double team that guy, put a second body on him. It's going to be, you line him up and he's going to be a game wrecker. So I would definitely do it for him. I would have, I think, a tougher time with Winfrey just because of the inconsistent tape and such. But, it's something to consider for sure.
The thing about Winfrey for me is I've just got this vibe that he could be a Chris Jones. Someone whose tape was inconsistent. He's actually had a better run in the 40 than Chris Jones did. I've just got this feeling, there's just a vibe about him that, you watch him on the tape and you kind of think, not sure. But you just know the upside is there. It wouldn't surprise me in 3 years if Perion Winfrey is one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in the NFL. So it's interesting. It is interesting. I think there's the defensive tackle group is outstanding. And if the Seahawks could get one of them, great. I sense they'll be gone at 41. Let's move on to the edge rushers. There was a lot of sort of hope and expectation with this group, Robbie. But, there were some issues here that I'm going to get into. But who is there anybody who stood out for you? Anything that you want to pass on from your bird's eye view at Lucas Oil?
There wasn't really. I mean, the defensive tackles stole the show. I think when the ends came out, I think they did a good job. I think there was a lot of people falling when they kind of did the pads and such. But I don't really. There wasn't anybody that it was mostly just disappointing. It was kind of like there wasn't anything that stood out as overshadowing. I do think. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. There just wasn't anybody that just I wasn't blown away. You talk about I was interested to see Aiden Hutchinson go just because, he was clamored to be number 1 pick or, an option. And even him, it was just kind of underwhelming the whole time. It just didn't, there was nothing that just popped like it did when Jordan Davis was out there. So for me, there wasn't anything that just stood out. I don't know how it looked on TV, but for me,
it felt very similar. There was only 2 players who ran that elite 1.5 10-yard split. And that was Amari Barno, who ran a 1.54, who's in fairness to Barno, he ran the record time for a pass rusher at a 40 in the 4.3s, beating Montez Sweat. But his tape is really hit and miss, and he's a day 3 major project. And then the other guy who ran a 1.5 split was Kayvon Thibodeau. So that's it. I thought if more players would get into that kind of range. It didn't happen. Speaking of Thibodeau, he told everybody, I listened to a couple of interviews with him, that he was going to do everything at the combine. He was going to do this, that, and the other. He gets to the combine, he runs 240s and then puts his tracksuit back on and doesn't do anything. Didn't do any on-field drills, didn't do any jumps, didn't do any agility testing. He gave this really lousy excuse of, oh, they want me to do the linebacker drills straight after the pass rusher drills, and I don't want to do that, so I'll wait till pro day. And then we watched pretty much every defensive end do the linebacker drills at the end. It's like everybody was doing it, but he didn't want to do it, which just felt entitled. It's just, why make that decision? Like, if you're going to run the 40, do the drills. Like, you have just ruined your stock with a number of teams. You have given teams an excuse to mark you down, and it just, if you're making a stupid decision like that today, how many stupid decisions are you going to make when a team makes you a multi-millionaire? So all of a sudden, all that talk of him falling a little bit, I believe it, and someone will take a chance on the guy because he's a highly talented pass rusher, and you need those. But I don't know what was going through his brain. I mean, clearly, he's either getting terrible advice or he hasn't got a brain, because that was a ridiculous decision. Myjai Sanders is suddenly 228 pounds. How has he gone from in the 240s to 228?
Yeah, I don't know what happened
in the
there.
Senior Bowl. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Has he been sick? I mean, when I had COVID a few weeks ago, I didn't eat I didn't eat very much for 2 weeks, and I know I'm right now, I am about 9 pounds lighter than I was at the start of the year. So maybe he's had the same. I mean, if he's had COVID or something, I don't know what it is, but I don't get it. He 228 didn't look very good. Didn't test anywhere near. I mean, like the short shuttles and the agility testing, loads of guys didn't do it, but then the guys who did, George Karlaftis was being touted as like a 4.00 type short shuttle. He ran a 4.36. Myjai Sanders was apparently going to run a 4.05, ran a 4.37. David Ajabo's short shuttle's 4.45. A quick reminder that the short shuttle earlier, I'm trying to dig it out again, of DeMarvin Leal, who's 30 pounds heavier, was a 4.47. Ajabo's is a 4.45. Amari Barno might run a great 40. He ran a 4.45 short shuttle, not good. And then, Robbie, you've got the arm length. Aidan Hutchinson has 32 1/8 inch arms. Karlaftis, 32.5/8. Logan Hall, 32 3/4. Joshua Pichal, 32 3/4. Myjai Sanders, 32.5/8. Cam Thomas, 32.5. Boya Mafe, 32 5/8 inches. No one has any length. Like, there's a whole bunch of short-armed, non-elite pass rushers in this group. And I thought it was really disappointing. There was nobody, the guys who did perform, Robbie, from my perspective on the TV, we've talked a little bit about Barno. I thought Sam Williams' run of a 4.46 is excellent. A 1.60 10-yard split is good, but people were talking about him doing a 40-inch vertical, and he did a 32.5-inch vertical. When he was doing the drills, I didn't see natural bend, that lean, that balance. The one thing that Darrell Taylor did very well at Tennessee was that he would bend the arc straight into the quarterback in that freaky kind of way that top pass rushers do. You do not see Sam Williams do that on tape, and then in the drills, he looks stiff in a number of drills.
Yeah, you said it perfectly there. I mean, Sam Williams looked very stiff in his drills. I wasn't overly impressed, especially after he ran that fast 40. I was excited to see kind of what he did, but very underwhelming for me. And
then, Dominique Robinson and Angelo Malone, they both passed the eye test. And, when you actually look at them, Robbie, you think, yeah, they look like Seahawks pass rushers. Dominique Robinson, long, lean, yet in fantastic shape. D'Angelo Malone was, I think, 8 pounds heavier than he was at the Senior Bowl, but was carried the weight very, very well, looked the part. Malone didn't run or do any of the testing, probably because he's added that weight in such a short amount of time, and maybe it has impacted his numbers. So he's not testing yet. I guess he may slim down for pro day again and go and do some testing. Dominique Robinson's 40 was nothing special. Let me find it on here so I can read it out. I've got it on my list. So he ran a 4.72, which isn't great, is it? And a 1.67 split. But he jumped to 41-inch vertical and did a 10-1 broad. So what you're sort of seeing there is this is a guy who's very explosive, but he doesn't have that great quickness, that get off, that burst, Robbie. So I think that limits his stock. If he ran a 1.5 split and a 4.56, then we could be talking about him as an option at 41. Instead, I think he's somebody maybe round 3, round 4. You think based on body type, you maybe have a look at someone like Dominique Robinson, and I like his tape. And Angelo Malone had a very good Senior Bowl. So they're two players to keep an eye on, but still, not blowing you away. Joshua Pashal has short arms, didn't do any of the agility testing. Don't know why. He ran a 4.30 short shuttle at Spark, didn't do the agility testing. Did well in the broad, 10.3, he's explosive, no surprises there. 4.77 at 268 pounds is fine, fair enough. But, not particularly impressed that he didn't do the agility testing. Even I know it's late at night and a lot of guys didn't do it, but I would have loved to have seen that. Boya Mafe did well, 4.53 at 261 pounds, 38-inch vertical and a 10.5 broad, but short arms. I still think he's going to go too early for Seattle, but he could be an option at 41 if he did last. Logan Hall has short arms, had a good short shuttle though, 4.44 at 283 pounds. Trevon Walker's going to go in the top 10 after his workout, Robbie. He ran a 4.32 short shuttle at 272 pounds, which is pretty good. Not Frank Clark good, though. Frank Clark ran a 4.05 at around the same weight. So people going, there was a bit of an overreaction to Trevon Walker's workout yesterday. Like, oh, he's done this. It's unbelievable. And he's done that. They were acting like he was Jordan Davis. He wasn't Jordan Davis. Frank the Tank ran a 4.05 short shuttle. Trevon Walker did not run a 4.05 short shuttle. So I personally, Robbie, off the back of this, I wonder what you think about this, came away thinking the Seahawks aren't going to draft a pass rusher, an edge rusher at 41. That they're better off looking at free agents, Chandler Jones, Von Miller, Howard Landry, potentially Daniil Hunter or Zadarius Smith if they're released, or if they're open in a cheap trade, whatever. I would be going down that route rather than pinning your hopes on a pass rusher at 41. I think you get that pass rusher in free agency, and then we're looking at tackles, centers, defensive tackles if they last, potentially linebackers on what happens with Bobby Wagner, potentially running back based on what happens with Rashad Penny. Let's see what the DBs do today. That's what I'm sort of thinking right now. How do you feel about it?
No, I totally agree. Unless one of these guys falls into the fourth, then you kind of take a look at it. I mean, a lot of these guys could be, if they're had in the fourth, I don't think you're going to, bat an eye on that. These are kind of guys that you could at least put an effort in and worth the risk at a fourth round pick. But I don't think at 41 or even in the third round, you're looking at that. I think you go free agency and you just hope one of those beast of a D tackles fall. That's what you hope for.
Well, here's the thing with the Seahawks have said, we've got to improve the pass rush. So do it.
Yeah.
First day of free agency, get a deal done.
Yep.
Address that right off the bat. Done. Priority accomplished.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about it anymore. And if you have to take a bit of a risk, take it. You get that. Let's just say, look, I know there are people who push back on the Chandler Jones because of his age, and I get it. But if you bring in Chandler Jones day one of free agency and you say, okay, we've got Darrell Taylor, Chandler Jones, and Carlos Dunlap. That's a great pass rush for me. That's a trio that you can feel comfortable about, confident going into next year. I'm not bothered about Chandler Jones's age. He's the same age as Robert Quinn, who had 18.5 sacks playing with Sean Desai last year. So if they're going to use that kind of scheme and those ideas and Desai's in the building, I think that I'm not saying he's going to get 18 sacks, but I think, you could get 10, 12, 15 from him across from Taylor with Carlos Dunlap chipping in. I think you're in a great position. And then you don't have to worry about it. You're not left thinking, is there going to be an option at 41? Can we get someone later in the draft? Is there some random journeyman who's still available 2 weeks into free agency? You've addressed your big need and it sets everything else up. Then you go hunting for the value. Then you go looking to see what's available on the offensive line. Then you go seeing what the receiver market's like. Then you go and seeing what the cornerback market's like. That it just builds off there. And then you go into the draft with as fewer needs as possible, and you take the best player available. That's how it should work. The problem is the Seahawks haven't been doing that for years. They've been going into the draft with huge needs and having to force things. They've even been coming out of the draft, Robbie, with pre-existing needs. Cough, center, cough, a year ago. Cornerback, pass rusher the year before, and then getting themselves into trouble in training camp trying to get guys in at the last minute. Whether that's a Jamal Adams trade, picking off the scraps of other rosters to get cornerbacks in, putting whoever that, just chucking a random bloke at center to see if he can fill in the hole because Ethan Posic's injured. They can't be doing that again this year. So right off the bat, pass rusher and then O-line. And that's the thing, Robbie, is the O-line options are pretty good. Is Abraham Lucas going to be there? If not, I don't think he will because he's so good, but fingers crossed. Cole Strange, Cam Jurgens, Zion Johnson took some snaps at center, very explosive. I'm happy. If you make that kind of investment, I'm down. But we'll see.
You already know my feelings on Cam, so I'm all in on that guy. But and Abraham Lucas, either one of those guys fall at 41. I'm running to the stage to draft them.
And a super chat from Paid at Sports Cards, $2. Thank you very much for that. If you want to get super chats in, support the channel for all the work we've done here, then it is much appreciated. What do you guys think of Ebiketie? I like him a lot. He didn't run. He did the drills. I like Ebiketie. I like Arnold Ebiketie. And, he was explosive, 38-inch vertical, 10-8 broad. He's got long arms, 34 and 8, 250 pounds. He is the kind of guy that, I wish we had more numbers on him so we could properly analyze his fit in Seattle. But he is a guy that if he lasted to 41, Robbie, I think could potentially be an option for the Seahawks. I think on tape, you see plenty of the kind of wins that they like. I think he is an option, but it's hard to sort of gauge when you don't do any of the runs, you don't do any of the agility testing, you just do the jumps and the drills. Did you sort of see anything from him during the drills?
I mean, he's got good bend and good length. That's about all I can really recall about him. He seems like he's got pretty long arms from what I was just trying to look him up.
Yeah, he's got 34 and an 1/8 inch arms.
Yeah, so, and you can see that on tape, or you can see that in person. Like he had pretty good bend. I wish we had more on him. I think he could definitely be an option. He could be one of those, because he didn't do some of the drills, he could be, one of the hidden gems or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
I think he's going to go late first round. So I don't think he's going to be there at 41. I think early second round potentially as well. Could be there for the Seahawks and could be an option. But hopefully he does a lot more at his pro day than he did at the combine. And I don't understand why he didn't run. What are you hiding? Because if you're doing the drills and you're running in the field, you can run. So what are you hiding? You're waiting for a fast track. What is it here? What are you doing? You want the same track that Jason Owe ran a year ago? Is that what it is? You want to get in those 4.3s? No, get out there and compete, man. Get out there and run a 40.
Get that wind machine behind you.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Ed says Rutcher's done. Let's quickly do linebackers and then talk about other topics here. There are a few guys that stood out. Trey Anderson has been threatening to break into round 2. He had a good Senior Bowl, runs a 4.4, 240 at 243 pounds, jumps 36-inch vertical, 10.8 broad. He was a top performer yesterday. Channing Tindall, unbelievable, Robbie, for me. 4.53, 40, 42-inch vertical, 10.9 broad. A special talent. And for me, he is ahead of Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker and has been for a while in terms of ability and potential. I would love to see his aggressive, confident mindset in Seattle.
Yeah, and an opportunity to play more. He played behind some good linebackers. So for him to get in there and show what he did at the combine, it just shows how deep that Georgia team is, man. I'm telling you, yesterday I was blown away by every Georgia player. So yeah, he stood out for me. And you already said him. Trey Anderson also stood out for me. He's fast, dude. He came out blazing and for his size, overall just super impressed with him as well. But for me, those Georgia linebackers are something. So I'm saying, I think you get some of these guys. I think you top 20, you're going to get 6 Georgia players. I think.
Yeah, I don't know where Tindall's. I think Tindall may well be there at 41, just because of the position and stuff like that. But we'll see. He could easily go in the late first round as well. But it's a weird one with him because he was essentially the third linebacker. He was spelled. He didn't start many games for Georgia. He came off. He came on the field when they were resting Nakobe Dean or Quay Walker. So. It's an odd one, but he called himself a freak of nature in an interview during the 2021 season, and he was correct. Christian Harris, yeah, he certainly did. Christian Harris's tape at Alabama, I thought was massively underwhelming, but he ran a 4.44, 226 pounds. He's a lot lighter than some of these other guys, but still ran very well. Damone Clark looks put together. I've said often that he's got the body of a Greek god. He ran a 4.56 at 239 pounds, 36.5-inch vertical, 10.7 broad. I want to know what you think of Leo Chanel, because his body type is very stocky. He doesn't have a traditional body for the position. It's almost like his bottom half is very thick. He's quite blocky in his build, doesn't have great length. But then he ran a 4.53 40 at 250 pounds. He jumps a 40.5-inch vertical, a 10.8 broad. None of the bloody linebackers did really any agility testing, Robbie, which is the tell for whether the Seahawks are going to be interested in him. And he was being talked about as somebody who could do a 4.10 or something in the or lower. And yet, because they were being asked to do it at like 10 o'clock at night,
that's it right there.
None of them have done it because the combine. I mean, the combine has absolutely made a total dog's dinner of this. There's no buzz. I've got this. Let me just quickly read this. A quick digression before we finish off this linebackers conversation. I've got this tweet here, Robbie, that I was looking at that somebody posted the viewing figures. So this was posted from yesterday. So this is talking about Friday night, the combine, when the quarterbacks and the receivers were testing, and they're supposed to be a big draw. 217,000 viewers on the NFL Network with a 0.08 demo, and that was good for 68th amongst TV ratings that night. So they've moved it to prime time. Nobody's bloody watching it. The players aren't doing the bench press or any of the agility testing. No, half the players aren't running. You've got stars like Kayvon Thibodeau just bailing halfway through. This event has been destroyed. It is a complete waste of time for everybody at the moment. They might as well just do the pro days. So the NFL's got a choice. Go back to how it was or cancel the thing. Because there's no point. You are ruining the combine. Right, that's my rant over. Back to the linebackers. I think Chad Muma wants to mention as well, Robbie. I don't know if there's anybody else that you want to mention. Chad Muma was very, very athletic, tested very, very well. He had a 4.63 40, 40-inch vertical, 10.9 broad. Short shuttle of 4.28 is good, not great. 7.063 cone, but there's a decent chance that he will go in the second round.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on Leo Chanel real fast. Just kind of like you said, he's real stocky. He seemed to lack burst for me, but then he also was explosive in a lot of traits too. So I don't know. I think he's one of those guys you can he could play 10 years easy at linebacker and be just fine. I think he's built well. I just think you might lose a little bit of speed on it. I mean, as he gets older, but for right now, I don't think it's an issue. I mean, he does look bigger though. I mean, especially in person, he does look stocky. But yeah, he's definitely a player to watch for.
I mean, if they got rid of Bobby Wagner, I'd be open to linebacker at 41, but for the right linebacker. And for me, the right linebacker is Channing Tindall, in my opinion. That's my view on it. I think that would be the right guy. If you want to be aggressive, if you want to be quick, you want to be fast, you want to take away those kind of stretch runs and all the stuff that the Niners do. Channing Tindall for me. Okay, so there we are. We've got 1 day to go. The defensive backs today should be interesting. Quickly, something to look for if you are watching at home, or if you, like Robbie, you're even in Luke Sort Field. I think that the talk of going towards more man-to-man coverage is going to sort of shift away from long, tall, kind of lean, typical Seahawks corners and more to speed. I think we need to look at who are the speed demons, who transitions well in their back pedal, who is looking very fluid athletes when they're running downfield, who does well in the W drill. These are the kind of things we need. Players who can stick, because that's what it's about in man coverage. It's not about being physical necessarily or doing all that Richard Sherman, Brandon Brown and stuff. It is just about, can you stay with the receiver? If you are going to sit next to some really quick receiver, can you track them all around the field? So we need to look for quickness and suddenness amongst this cornerback group later today. And I will be keeping an eye on the safeties because Quandre Diggs is a free agent, Robbie. And I'm going to talk about this now. There was a free agency sort of piece from the combine compiled by Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano, who are two of the upcoming insiders in the NFL. I think they do a very good job. And they were talking about players who can be franchised, and Quandre Diggs' name was not on that list, which it seems to look like they're going to let him test the market and hope to recruit him back at a price. But that also means there's a chance he goes somewhere else. But I think he will be back, but we'll see. I just hope they don't break the bank for him. So worth watching the safeties later. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for live blogs and reaction. And I've got a big piece to post at the end of the day as well. And I've got to get cracking on that. So, right. This article, Robbie, I wanted to ask you about this. You've read this piece. If people head over to Jeremy Fowler's Twitter account, you will find this piece online. Dan Graziano, Jeremy Fowler. They talk about franchise tags. They talk about Aaron Rodgers. They talk about Bill Belichick becoming the offensive coordinator at the Patriots, which is quite funny. The Patriots just look like they're going to become a really nothing team, which is quite amusing. Which team is going to draft a quarterback early? They talk about Carson Wentz. They talk about trade or cap casualties. They also have a big section on the Seahawks. And there are a few things that I want to mention here, Robbie. First of all, the first mention the Seahawks get is when they're talking about free agents whose new deals might surprise you. And in the section where they talk about 49ers guard Laken Tomlinson, they say he's emerging as a top guard and could spark a bidding war closer to free agency. The Bengals, Panthers, Vikings, Steelers, Jets, and Seahawks are amongst the teams that will be in the guard market. Austin Corbett is also a buzzworthy name just below Laken Tomlinson. So I found that really interesting because the Seahawks haven't moved off Gabe Jackson. Now, if they were going to cut Gabe Jackson, they would have done it by now. They've actually paid him a bonus. So if they were going to get rid of Gabe Jackson, he would have been gone. They're kind of committed to Gabe Jackson now for this year. So unless they're deciding to shift Damian Lewis to center, which I just stop moving Damian Lewis around. Stop ruining this guy. Had a great rookie season at right guard. Stop pissing around, moving him in different positions, and just put him back at right guard and let the guy play his best role. Like, we don't need guards to play center. Just get a darn center, for crying out loud. So anyway, Austin Corbett has played with the Rams. I wouldn't be surprised, Robbie, if they think, well, if we're going to go with that system, we need a guard who fits that system. But then if you put Austin Corbett there, you're still going to have either Gabe Jackson or Damian Lewis playing the other guard spot. So, you can't transition. It's going to take some time. If they want to recreate the Rams timeline, it's going to take some serious changes to the personnel they've got up front. They probably need to consider moving on from Jackson and from Damian Lewis and maybe Dwayne Brown. I don't know. And going in a completely different direction. I don't really understand why the Seahawks are being connected with the guard market. That to me is, of all the positions on the O-line, I would think with your two tackles, free agents, and your center free agent, those are the positions you should be looking at.
Yeah, I was confused when I saw that article. I didn't really understand why maybe they just assume we need offensive line help, so they're just throwing our name in there, but they're connected a lot more. I don't really understand why we want to get in a bidding war for a guard right now, especially since you're right. We just paid Gabe Jackson a bonus, and it sounds like they're committed to him. In my opinion, you need to move Damian Lewis back to right guard as well. If you're going to cut Gabe Jackson, freaking do it, man. Get him off the team and then get in the market. But I think they probably didn't because our left tackle, our right tackle, and our center are all free agents. So they I don't know if they want to do that with 4, but it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of play it out. The numbers that they were throwing out too for Tomlinson, I thought seems expensive. It seems like we priced ourselves right out of that. So it doesn't seem like something we should be doing. And my opinion on the center market. We should have done that last year. I think again, this is the year that we should draft somebody or make a smart move and get a damn good player there at center position and quit dicking around with these. Sorry for the language, but.
No, it was an appropriate use of language.
Just quit screwing around with these guys who you're just throwing in the mix and getting Russ's butt kicked, do something else. So, yeah. Yeah.
And the piece then goes on. There is a whole section on the Seahawks probably called What's Up in Seattle? And I can answer that question with a great deal of detail, but that's another story. So Graziano starts it off. Says Russell Wilson still has not told the Seahawks he wants to be traded out of Seattle, and it's possible he never will. Certainly the Seahawks are proceeding as though there's nothing to see here and planning on Wilson as their quarterback in 2022. Teams have been calling, and the memory of the discontent he expressed last offseason will continue to fuel speculation unless and until the Seahawks extend his contract again. But for now, the Seahawks are telling interested teams they don't want to move him and are proceeding with a relatively normal offseason. So we'll sort of break this down into sections. So that's Graziano on Wilson. This is what Fowler said on Wilson. There isn't much momentum for Wilson to be traded in the short term, as Dan points out. Wilson is lying low and watching what Seattle does this offseason. The threat of a potential deal still looms, however, because several teams will continue to call. After talks with people around the league, the 3 teams that come up most often are Denver, Philadelphia, and Washington, with a little Carolina talk. Based on what I know, Wilson will be more amenable to Denver than the NFC East. If Rodgers stays with Green Bay as expected, don't be surprised if the Broncos turn their attention to Wilson and Seattle. But all of that is a big if because he hasn't requested a trade. Seattle has discussed a Wilson deal with Chicago and Cleveland in past years. So it's not like it's intention not to trade him. Coach Pete Carroll's stance can't be tweaked. But Carroll is 70 and probably not eyeing a rebuild with a lesser quarterback, and Wilson would have infinite leverage if he produces in a big way in 2022. Without wanting to just go over old ground again, I think that what we're seeing here, Robbie, is everybody keeping their options open. So the Seahawks don't want to trade Wilson, but they want to know what's out there. They want to establish his value. Russell Wilson hasn't requested a trade, but he's viewing free agency from a distance and is going to... Look, my understanding of this whole situation is that Russell Wilson is perhaps doesn't sort of see the options there they did a year ago. You know, of his 4 teams that he listed a year ago, there's only really the Saints who you would sort of say are still in that, you know, of that who need a quarterback. He's never come out and publicly said who other teams would be. I think Denver would be somewhat appealing because of the infrastructure they've got there and the offensive-minded head coach. Washington's a difficult one because, yeah, it's local to him, but also very toxic franchise. Do you want to do you want to answer questions about that? If you're Russell Wilson, look, you could go there and maybe he does want to go there and turn that franchise around. It's a huge market. It's a great city. Maybe he fancies a bit of that. But do you want to go there? And if something comes out about what's been going on behind the scenes in that franchise, and do you get asked about it at your press conference and have to answer questions about that? I don't know. If Russell Wilson has to sort of make his mind up on whether he wants to do that. And then with the Eagles, who knows? Who knows whether they would be a fit or an interest or not. I mean, I can't personally. I don't see them as a particularly exciting proposition for someone like Russell Wilson. I think going to the Commanders with a new name and trying to get that, you know, old time franchise going in the right direction is a challenge that I can imagine would whet your appetite. And likewise the Broncos and taking on that challenge because they're very aggressive and very positive, focused mind going forward. I could see that. I'm not sure about whether trying to help the Eagles get back to another Super Bowl is a great thing for Wilson. So, I mean, look, I'm trying to sort of work out what I actually think about all this, Robbie, and what's going to happen. If you said to me, Rob, you've got to put $100 on a prediction, I'd say that Wilson's going to be back next year, but we're going to be talking about this for the next right up until the draft. This is still going to be talked about and talked about and talked about. I would put money on him still being back, though. Do I think it's the right thing? I don't know. And I could spend another half an hour, Robbie, talking about why I don't know whether it's the right thing or not. Maybe that's for another day. Because I keep coming back to this. If you have no intention of paying Wilson a $45 million plus contract next year, you need to move on now. There's no point waiting a year. You're dealing in the seller's market. If you want to pay him that contract, just do it now. Get it out of the way. Nip this in the bud. Take away the drama once and for all. Make that commitment. Make it a 5-6 year contract. Commit to him. Do it now if you want to. If you can't, if you don't want to pay him that money, trade him. And maybe that's what the Seahawks think, Robbie. Maybe David Carr on ESPN constantly says the Seahawks are ready to move on. And they don't rate him well enough. And he criticizes them for it. And they're clearly keeping their options open, as is Wilson. Are they waiting for the right offer to come in? Are they hoping to flesh out a great offer? Are they waiting for the Rodgers situation to be resolved? Because then they know the bidding war begins. It's not just an offer from Washington. You're not going to accept Washington's first offer and not hear from Denver and not hear from Philadelphia. If Rodgers stays in Green Bay, you'll have multiple teams, and you can play them off each other, and then you know what is on the table. But even if you get a great offer, you've still then got to go to the quarterback and say, and how do you have that conversation? We'd quite like to trade you after all. Would you like to go and talk to the Eagles? And Wilson, or the Commanders, or the Broncos? And Wilson could still go no. And then what happens if Wilson says no? Because then you've shown your hand to the quarterback saying, we don't want you anymore. And he's saying, well, I'm going to play out my contract, actually, which he's well within his rights to do because he's got no trade clause. And he might think, well, I'm better off coming back to Seattle, having another year in Seattle, repairing my stock. Next year, got great leverage for a contract, and I can push for a trade, and there might be more teams interested, and there might be a better situation for me. So it's an absolute mess. It's a shambles. I think, again, you've got a marriage of inconvenience where both people want to split up, but they're sticking together for the kids. And, like you've got Wilson, who quite wants to leave, but might think it's better to wait till next year. You've got the Seahawks, who perhaps want to move on, Robbie, but at the same time, they've got an old coach, and he might think, I'll give it one last go with Wilson this year. And you know what? No one's thinking about the franchise and the team and the fans. Everyone's thinking about themselves. That's what it feels like to me.
All right, here's my take on this. I think nothing will happen until Aaron Rodgers makes his decision. And then you're right. Then the bidding war starts. Wherever Rodgers ends up, then it starts to go downhill from there. That's where things start to take a turn. I'm going to give you a team that we haven't talked about for a while. I think I could see a scenario, since they've already been taking calls. You just mentioned David Carr. Well, his little brother has been getting called a lot about. Derek Carr's been getting calls from the Raiders. The Raiders are taking calls, and they've been saying all the right things. Oh, well, we like Derek Carr. We're not trading, blah, blah, blah. They're probably trying to drive up the price as well. I could see a scenario where they end up trading Derek Carr and then using that first and their first and another first and maybe a couple players and flipping it to the Seahawks for Russ. Keep in mind that the Raiders, they want their rock star quarterback. They want a rock star, head coach, and they got Josh McDaniel. It's one of the teams that Russ said he would be willing to go to. I think that's another scenario that could play out. There's a lot of things that could change within the next, couple days, couple weeks. So it's tough. I mean, if you're right, if they don't want to pay him $45 million, then it's time to just move on and do that. But this whole thing is just a disaster that, like I said yesterday, they just keep saying for now, or everything's
I hope
for now.
Hope to be around.
Yeah, I hope to be around.
Don't intend to trade him.
Yeah, that just like either extend him or trade him. Like, get over this drama.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Do one of that's it, Robbie.
Yeah.
We can't live in this no man's land forever of wondering and speculation. And I know the defenders of the faith, aka the Seattle Seahawks media corps, are very happy just to sort of peddle the team's message, which is there are no American troops in Baghdad, comical alley. That's what they're willing to do. But we have to talk about this because it is a real thing. It hasn't been addressed. It will only ever be addressed when he's traded or extended, as Graziano points out. So it's time to do one or the other. If you extend him, you lower his cap hit this year. You've got more to spend in free agency. You can be really aggressive in free agency. You can go for it this year. I am down with that 100%. But if you are not prepared to do that, then get the best offer you can, trade him, create the cap space, try and build a great team. Retain your guys, Diggs, Brown, Penny, DJ Reed, add a pass rusher, add another great cornerback. Go and build a great team. Improve your offensive line with the savings that you have, Robbie. And you've got more picks to spend as well. And just go and draft a quarterback and get an experienced guy in like you did in 2012 and just embrace it. Just do it. Just take the plunge. Do one or the other. I just don't want to go into next season watching the same thing we've seen year after year. Whether if they don't do any of these things and they just carry on, they haven't got the money to improve the team. They can only sort of stand still. And we've seen that the 2021 team wasn't good enough. So why would you go back to 2022 and have another go? It's not good enough. I can't watch another season
because we beat a failing Cardinals,
the Lions,
team. And we beat a failing Cardinals team that was apparently the best team in the division. But yeah,
do you know, I'm a few weeks ago, Robbie, I was, I want to go all in on Wilson and do it. If they don't want to do that, just trade him for me. I'm happy. If they don't want to do it, then fine, but trade him. I'm ready to move on one way or the other. I just want a resolution. I'm sick of talking. And people go, well, why? If you're sick of talking about it, why are you talking about it? Well, you can't just hide away from a debate because you don't enjoy it.
Almost every day that's different.
We've got another article today.
Yeah, that's why we have to talk about it.
You don't. I don't enjoy talking about it. over and over again, but you have to talk about it because it's the only topic in town, really. It's the big, thing to discuss with regards to the Seahawks until it's resolved. So but I want a resolution to it. And, I'd be excited, Robbie. I'm not sure that it'd be the best thing in terms of whether the team's going to win this year or not, but it would be exciting to go into free agency with a bit more money to spend and the draft and to have a few more picks and to have a new quarterback coming in and to sort of wonder what the future is going to be and whether they can recreate some of that magic, even if it ultimately fails. And the NFL has to be fun. You've got to want to sort of believe that there's going to be some fun coming up. And I don't think the Seahawks are fun at the moment. So be aggressive or make the trade. And look, the Matt Corral talk, we talked about it yesterday. There was that picture of Pete Carroll with Matt Corral and Lane Kiffin and Monty Kiffin. And it just, to me, Robert, it just looked, it looked more than just we've all just, it looked like there was something there. It looked like there was like it. And here's the thing, as I was driving back from the mall, I've still got my coat on, I've just come straight in and done this from the mall. It just popped into my head, right? The Seahawks only drafted 2 quarterbacks, haven't they? Under Carroll. 2. Wilson and Alex Magoo. Who was Alex Magoo's college football coach? Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin? Oh, no. I didn't know that.
Lane Kiffin, when he was at Florida Atlantic, coached Alex Magoo. So, I was watching an interview with Matt Corral about the offense that they play. And they like to take shots downfield, he says. And he was describing this offense. And I was thinking, do you know what? Lane Kiffin has elevated his offense to be, he is like let Russ cook in a way. That's how he plays the game. And he goes for every 4th down and stuff like that. So you can't mix him and Pete Carroll up. They are very different philosophical minds. But Carroll's worked with the Kiffins very closely over the years. And he's drafted a quarterback from that system. Or, all right, late round pick, but he's drafted, the only other player they've drafted is from that offense. So I'm just saying, and they were meeting together. And somebody posted on the blog a documentary that Ole Miss did about Matt Corral. About the Ole Miss team. And Matt Corral was heavily featured in this. And that guy, I didn't realize this, Robbie, because I've not studied in depth. Why would I study Matt Corral until now? That guy is an ultimate competitor. And I can imagine Pete Carroll loving his competitive spirit in a big way. Just saying. And the other thing, he's not a big guy, but I can imagine John Schneider liking that arm. He's got a whip-like motion, very quick release, fires the ball downfield. There are big issues with Matt Corral. I'm going to write about it this week that you also have to consider, including the fact that the offense does the work for him. More often than not, he knows where he's going before the snap, and he just has to deliver. There's not a lot of
bunch of people saying right now that Corral is trash. A bunch of people saying Corral is trash. I have no idea why. I've seen it. I've watched
he's not trash.
I've seen a couple of highlights yesterday, but I haven't studied him at all, so I literally have zero idea.
I have studied him. He's not trash. But, is Matt Corral the kind of guy that I'd want to take in the top 10 and build a foundation around? No. Is Matt Corral the kind of guy that I could see being taken in the late 1st or the 2nd round, Robbie, and being a quarterback, a second-tier quarterback? Do you know what I mean? Like a Derek Carr level, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo level, a player who is not going to, on his own, elevate you to a title. He's not Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not one of those guys. Is he going to be the kind of guy that if you have the framework around him, that he can deliver the ball to the right area and keep you on time? Yes. Yes. And more so, I will say, than Malik Willis, who's just a physical player who doesn't read the field very well and doesn't process and do anything like that. And Desmond Ridder's accuracy is very erratic. I think Corral doesn't obviously have the athleticism of Desmond Ridder and some of the upside physically, but he's not a slouch. He's a scrambler. He's got a good arm. He's definitely not Malik Willis in terms of his physics, but I think he is better at sort of running an offense. So, look, and people go, as soon as you mention somebody like this, there's a comment here. If he's Jimmy Garoppolo, no thanks. Well, look, I'm not saying he's exactly Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a far better runner than Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's got a better arm. I'm saying, is he a top tier quarterback? No. Is he a second tier quarterback who could be that? I mean, let's not forget, Jimmy Garoppolo has quarterbacked the Niners to a Super Bowl and an AFC Championship game. And yeah, when he's got to those games, it's not been good enough. But when's the last time the Seahawks got to an NFC Championship game? And if having him on a rookie contract and not paying him a huge amount enables you to build the foundation that, let's say, the Niners have got around him, and if you get a whole bunch of draft picks and you build up your defensive line the way that the Niners have done, and you get that running game going, can he help you win? Maybe. But, obviously everybody says he's useless in the comment section and they know better. And I'm not trying to say that the Seahawks should do this, Robbie. I'm just saying that I think he's got the potential to be a second-tier quarterback, that he's got some of the things that Seahawks will like, that they have been connected to having interest in him. That is a report that is out there from Charlie Campbell. Take it or leave it. Make of that what you will. And then there's a bloody picture out there with Pete Carroll and Monte Kiffin and Lane Kiffin having a jolly good time with Matt Corral at the Combine. I'm just saying. And if they really believe in that guy, Robbie, I want to pitch two things to you. One, if they really like Matt Corral, then just get on with it and trade Russell Wilson. And take Corral wherever you feel like you've got to take him and just move on. Because I just want to move on. Either extend Wilson or move on. That's one thing. If you like that guy, if you believe that, if you believe he can be something for you, then do it. Second thing, what are the chances of the Seahawks not trading Russell Wilson, but drafting Matt Corral at 41 if he's still there?
I mean, that's
call it the Jordan Love idea, in that the Seahawks think, well, we might not want to pay Wilson in a year, and a trade might be inevitable. Yeah. But we like this guy, so we'll draft him and and have a look at him for a year. And in a year's time, if we think he's the solution, then we'll trade Russell Wilson and save ourselves a fortune. But if Carroll's not good, what have we lost? Second round pick. We've wasted plenty of draft picks. We've wasted 2 firsts for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
On Jamal Adams. We can waste another one. What's he going to lose? Frankly, I think if you are building a plan for the future of quarterback, Robbie, I don't think it's ever a wasted pick. And if you feel like taking a shot on somebody that you really like now to have a closer look at them over the next 12 months to see if they're the future rather than Russell Wilson, I think it's a plan that you could at least justify. I mean, people will go, well, it'll upset Wilson. It'll do. Well, so bloody what? If he gets to send tweets out to Adam Schefter or messages to Adam Schefter,
he started it last year. So yeah.
I mean, I wanted us to have a serious look at Davis Mills and Kellen Mond a year ago. And if they really like him, and I'm going to watch more Matt Corral this week, and I'm going to write an article about him and have a proper opinion about him moving forward. If they really like him, then move forward with it. And all those people in the comment section, I tell you what, you do the challenge with me. People in the comment section saying that Matt Corral's no good or 41's too high. I'm going to watch about 5-6 games of his this week. They're all on YouTube. You can do it. You go and do the same and then have that opinion. Because I'm guessing you haven't watched 5, 6, 7, 8 games of Matt Corral to have the opinion to say he's no good. So let's all go and watch him together this week, and then we'll all congregate on the blog and have a comment about it. What do you think, though, Robbie? I mean, it's not ridiculous, is it?
No, it's not ridiculous. And I think that, I've thought about that scenario. What if he falls to 41 and he's available? Is that something that you do? And knowing all the holes that we have and some of the players that could be available, it'd be a tough pill for me to swallow. But I could see a scenario where they're doing that. And I just want to touch real fast on something. Where to go? Mick said the trouble with this is the uncertainty that impacts on the free agency. And I think that's the biggest issue that I'm actually having, is that this Russell Wilson drama causes issues going into free agency. Players, like really good ones, if we want to get these blue chip players, are going to come in and be like, well, what's up with Russ? And if we're not able to give them a good answer, why would they want to come to Seattle? They're going to want to go play for a contender. I mean, if not, we're going to have to shell out more money just to be like, well, we're going to give you a higher contract than this other team. Then it becomes about money, but still then you're overpaying maybe for a player that you could have had if you would have had this Russell Wilson situation, handled. So I think that's the biggest problem I'm having with this whole drama thing with Russell Wilson, that it affects their overall morale of the team and what could actually happen going forward. Now, listen, at 41, if Matt Corral is there and and you draft him, you got to be prepared to have the repercussions of what's going to happen, and knowing that there's going to be a lot of changes going forward after that. There's going to be a lot of drama that's added to that. Again, I'm in the same boat. I'd love to just build around Wilson and just like, let's do that. But I mean, if you're not willing to pay him that money going forward, then just move on.
And here's the thing. The epiphany thing on Alex Magoo being Lane Kiffin coached and them liking him back in the day, Robbie. Let's not forget, this is the team that signed Matt Flynn to a big contract. He's the starter, and then drafted Russell Wilson a few weeks later and didn't have any issues saying, what? Go on, Matt, go on. You just get out there and compete if you're willing to do that. In that situation, are you willing to do that with Russell Wilson? Are you going to say, no, well, you don't want to, if you don't like it, you've got to, look, this is the ultimate leverage move. I don't think you have to baby Russell Wilson, Robbie, and say, oh, we've got a contract extension talk coming up next year. We can't upset Russ because it might impact leverage. Well, actually, why don't you go into those contract talks and going, well, here's the deal. If you don't want it, we've got this guy. So you can, we're going to move forward with him. You go and get yourself an offer somewhere else if you don't want to take this. It's a leverage play. It might even be worth it for that. It might save you a bit of money. Might save you a bit of drama, frankly, rather than create drama. So I don't know. I'm not totally against the idea. If they don't do it for the sake of it, but if you really believe in Corral in the same way that you really believed in Wilson in 2012, I think it's worth considering for that. So I think it's interesting. And I look at a final point on this Wilson thing before we move on very quickly. There's a couple of other things I want to mention on that article before we finish. Is that here's the other thing about free agency. They need a pass rusher, don't they?
Yep.
If Wilson's willing to go to Washington, I'll come back to the offer that I suggested to you recently. 2 first, the 11 pick this year and the first next year. Second this year, the second next year. And Chase Young. You've got your pass rusher. You've got $4 million from the next year. Even take one of those picks out if you want, or turn that one of the seconds into a third, whatever, if it's too much. But you get your pass rush. You don't have to go into the free agency market. You've got Chase Young and Darrell Taylor, who are the best young pass rushers in the league, suddenly on your roster. All right, you don't have a quarterback, but if you like Matt Corral, listen. I'm just saying, it's a plan.
Yeah,
it's a plan, and then you'd have more money to spend in free agency, and you'd have 2 first-round picks, 2 first-round picks next year, 2 second-round picks next year, 2 second-round picks this year, and the number 11 overall pick. So I think that's an offer. If you can get an offer like that from Washington, I think you should seriously consider it. I think you should seriously consider it, and then improve your team. And maybe, like I say, maybe they're just waiting for the Aaron Rodgers thing to play out so they can get a bidding war going, and then they can truly find out what's going on. But I think they should be open-minded about this. I think they are being open-minded about it, despite what the media say. I think the Seahawks have to say publicly, we're not intending to trade him, because if you say anything else, Robbie, you're trading him, aren't you? If they tell Jeremy Fowler or Adam Schefter, actually, we're open to trading him, that means you're trading him. So you have to say this. So I don't think it means anything what they're saying publicly in a minute. In this article, quickly, Robbie, Dan Graziano, finally, someone has brought this up on a national level. The bigger and more immediate question in Seattle is the future of linebacker Bobby Wagner, a franchise icon who's 1 year left on his contract. He then lists the numbers. He says they're massive numbers for a 31-year-old, even one as great as Wagner. Would the Seahawks actually cut him to save $16.6 million in cap space? I can't rule it out, but they could also keep him with an extension that knocks that cap hit down. If I had to bet, I'd bet on the latter. But this is a situation to watch. And then he says, I don't expect Seattle, based on what I've been told, to use the franchise tag this year. And then he talks about trying to keep Rashard Penny and how easy that will be. He says if he gets big money elsewhere, they are willing to just move on, which if they do move on, Robbie, because the running game has been very important, I think it brings the running backs we were talking about yesterday, the Kenny Walkers, Breece Halls, Damian Pierces, and Zamir White. Keep an eye on that name, Zamir White. Just remember the name. I've given him a second-round grade. So that's what Graziano says. And then at the end, and this is perhaps the most interesting thing here, Robbie, of the whole piece, is Jeremy Fowler says, one Seattle development this week. the Seahawks have been asking around on the receiver market. That's interesting because they are already loaded at wideout. Maybe they just want depth, or maybe it's something more. First thing to mention is the way that the league has gone, you're only as good as your third receiver these days, Robbie. And people will go, well, they just drafted D. Eskridge. Well, D. Eskridge didn't do anything in year one. And might never be it may never be more than, a dynamic sort of piece of your offense rather than a true wide receiver 3. There are a whole bunch of receivers, big name receivers, who are reaching the free agent market, Robbie. And I don't think the Seahawks are going to go all in and sign Odell Beckham to massive money, or Godwin at Tampa Bay to massive money, or Allen Robinson to massive money. I don't think they're going to do that. I think we're sniffing around thinking if it gets to sort of week 2 and some of these guys are still there might be a prove-it deal to come play with Russell Wilson on offer. That's what I think. But I quite like that. I just don't want them to spend a lot of money on the receiver and then not fix the pass rush or the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's interesting after taking our second round pick last year with D. Eskridge, and it makes you wonder what they actually think of him. Or, I mean, is there something else that's kind of in the works, or are they just trying to take double coverage off of DK or Tyler and see what's happening? But I find it interesting. Actually, I like what Curtis is saying. That's another thing. Are they drumming up trade market for DK?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, there's not been any chat about that from Seattle's end. I mean, maybe they are, but I don't. And look, you can make a case that maybe you're better off spending money on, let's say, Chris Godwin, and having and then trading DK Metcalf. So you give Metcalf's salary to a Godwin, and then you get maybe a first or maybe even 2 first-round picks back, or a high first-round pick or whatever. I mean, look, there are no options. Jaguars needed. Someone even pitched this on the blog, and I don't think it's a ridiculous thought. The Jaguars desperately need a dynamic number 1 receiver for Trevor Lawrence. Would they trade the number 1 overall pick for DK Metcalf? Possibly. I don't think the number 1 pick's really that worth having this year, frankly. But you sort of think about a scenario like that. Would the Jets give up a first this year and a first next year for DK Metcalf?
Jets owe us one.
Well, they definitely do. And if they give us their pick next year, Robbie, I don't think DK Metcalf is going to be good enough to make the Jets a good team. So you might end up getting 2 top 10 picks or whatever for DK Metcalf. So, they're things that they should consider. But I think this is more about, and I've got the list up here of free agents. You've obviously, I don't think Devontae Adams is going to be an option, but Chris Godwin is 25 years old, reaching the market. Mike Williams is 27, reaching the market. Allen Robinson is 28, reaching the market. Odell Beckham Jr., everybody knows about. He is going to be a free agent. DJ Chark at the Jaguars is a free agent. He's in his mid-20s as well. I'm trying to just sort of see if there's anybody else on this list. Cordarrelle Patterson is more of a gadget player. Amari Cooper is going to be released, Robbie, big name. Michael Gallup is going to be a free agent from the Dallas Cowboys. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster. You've got Russell Gage, who did well at the Falcons. Christian Kirk's a really good player. So I think what this is, my guess on this aspect of the ESPN report is just that the options are so strong in free agency at receiver that the Seahawks are doing due diligence and just seeing what's out there. And if an opportunity arises, they will be ready to move for it, and they will have their background information. I think that's what this is. And I'll be very, very prepared for them to bring in a top wide receiver 3, because again, I think you need 3 really good receivers in this league today. And I have no issue at all with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and one of these, a Christian Kirk or a Godwin or whatever, or Amari Cooper being in Seattle next year. I think that is a pathway to being really, really good. I wish they picked Odell Beckham last season and then tried to keep him. I'd be okay with Odell Beckham coming in, knee injury or not. I think you've got to have a lot of targets here, Robbie. So I'm happy with that potential of coming in if they keep Russell Wilson. But look, we don't have to wait too long. What is it, 8 days till free agency begins?
That's right. Start soon.
Please, though, I'm pleading to the gods of football. Let this be a different offseason. Let the Seahawks just do something that energizes us, excites us, that is different. Whether it is an aggressive free agency period to dramatically improve this team so that off the back of free agency in the draft, Robbie, we can dream of championships.
Agreed.
Or Just trade Russell Wilson and give us the excitement of watching a new team being built.
Yeah.
Give us that chance to watch Chase Young highlights and Matt Corral tape and go in a completely different direction. One or the other, please. Because I cannot bear another free agency period where we're 2 weeks in and they've signed. The Seahawks have signed the 2022 version of Benson Mayowa to a $3 million. Pete Carroll says they have emphatically fixed their pass rush as a consequence.
Yeah.
No, you haven't.
The Seahawks have re-signed Ethan Posick and now are set at center position for the next 10 years.
The Seahawks felt that Ethan Posick took a huge step forward in the second half of last season and is primed for a breakout season. He's signed a $6 million contract.
Stop. God.
You know, I just can't be. We've please no, because if that happens, Robbie, I am just going to be so deflated.
Yeah.
About this whole thing. They've had 2 or 3 years of this now. Give us a reason to believe, to be excited again, please. But I don't know whether it's going to happen or not.
No, we'll find out in 8 days.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Robbie, always great to chat. Enjoy the final day of the combine.
Will do.
We'll do a final reaction stream to what we see, and by then we might even have more details on everything we've been discussing at the end of this. 1 or 2 people said, I thought you were talking about the draft. Well, that was, we did spend a good 40-45 minutes on the draft. So watch the start of the video if you missed that. Don't forget to like and share the video. Subscribe. Get those subscriptions up. It's up to 2,500 now, but I'm looking at these other channels that are far inferior, and they have a few more. So come on, let's get those subscriptions up. If you haven't subscribed, get in there. Help us out a little bit here. Thank you for all your support. Seahawksdraftblog.com, Seahawksdraftblog.com for the live blog later on, and the reaction and everything else, all of the coverage that you need for the combine and the Seahawks. Until later, Robbie, enjoy the combine.
Will do.
We'll see you again soon.